What's going on, people? So, got some shoes to talk about real quick. Been talking about a lot of shoes. I did my quarterly pickup video for fourth quarter of last year. Did my top 10 for 2022. It's a lot of shoe talk going on over here today, right? But if you look at the channel right now, it's been a lot of card talk going on. Been getting these Marvel Masterpiece 92s. It's been fantastic. I know I don't make it sound like that. It sounded very sarcastic. I heard it, but my emotions don't always carry out into like the actual words. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of a flat delivery a lot of the time. I'm not working on it. I've accepted that's who I am. Anyway, so let's go ahead and talk about these things right here. And then I'll bring these Novablast and Rises into comparison in a little bit here. This right here, right? This is the Brooks Hyperion 2 in the Colony Blue and Nightlife colorway. More specifically, Nightlife, because they led with that. It's also kind of just purple and green, but you know, whatever. So here's the thing, quick backstory as to why these are here. I went on the Brooks site because my aunt, she sent me some stuff the other day. Like, she knows I like exercise and whatever. She sent me some like thermal running pants and some socks, you know, which was nice of her, right? I do appreciate the thought. Sometimes I don't appreciate the execution as much because I'm like, great, now I gotta go get some more Brooks stuff, right? Because I don't have any real Brooks running shoes right now. So this was a whole thing where it's like, I get this thing, it's like, okay, now I gotta buy some stuff. And I certainly overcompensated, right? Got a lot of Brooks things on the way. But then I'll be able to wear the stuff, right? So there was an episode of Seinfeld that comes to mind recently, right? That I watched recently. Where like Jerry tried to give George like these tickets that he couldn't use. So, hey, you wanna go to this game? It's free tickets. He's like, wait, so now I gotta go buy go get this subway ride or this train ride or whatever to over here, go all out of my way, and then spend money on food and stuff. Like, this is basically a bill you're handing me. Sometimes that's how it is. Alright, so now you know why we're here. I bought these. Also, one other thing off of that, when I went to the Brooks site and I clicked on like the shoe finder thing, put in my preferences, they said the Hyperion 2 was something that I should get. So the Hyperion 2 is something that I got. Alright, now let's move into this. Across the bottom, what are you looking at down there? A whole underwhelming look, right? It looks just plain and cheap and just whatever, right? I look at it, I'm like, that's not really pulling me in any kind of way, but maybe it's fine, I don't know. So let's move on up to the midsole though, because that kind of is something. So the midsole here, I do like the design of it. It's got this nice little gradient thing going on, that's kind of cool. Little black layer up there to kind of switch things up. Little black piece in the back and all that good stuff, right? It's kind of a decent look. And then if you switch around over to the inside real quick, show you that bad boy. So more so in the front piece than the rest of it, because the rest of it just looks the same. In the front, you have this little DNA flash thing, nitrogen injected, right? Let's talk about that for a real quick second, because that's one of the big selling points to these in some kind of way. Know this though, these came out in the beginning of last year, 2024 that is. So there could be other things out there that are also doing this or whatever. So I'm not going to make it sound like this is the only way to get these. I'm very sure that it isn't. It's probably in a lot of their Hyperion shoes and maybe some other things. Anyway, so the nitrogen injection thing, right? So the way they do this, like they make the foam, it's whatever type of foam that it is, and then they actually do inject it with like heat and water and nitrogen or whatever. And what that's supposed to do, and according to all of the videos and text that they put up on their websites, what that's supposed to do is give you a foam that feels more responsive, right? Because like when you're running, that's what you want. You want that spring action. Like, you don't want to have anything too squishy, because sometimes when it's too squishy, much like I compared with, sometimes these feel squishy, or like the Glad Ride Max feels squishy sometimes, right? So then you feel like you're sinking down more into it, then you got to come out of that. This is supposed to eliminate that sort of feeling and still end up being like super light and all that good stuff, right? So all the same things that everybody says about like, hey, this is why our foam is better than last year, same thing, right? They just take a different method to make it better. And it's going to be like a split as far as like the different areas. So you have some foam in the front, right? And then you have like this piece in the back. So that way it's slightly different, so that way they work independently to just kind of like move you through your steps, right? Normal stuff, like I said, everybody does the same sort of deal. Just they find different ways to do it. Moving on past that, giving you a couple shots and whatnot of the upper so you can kind of look down on these, and hopefully not exactly look down on these, but look at them and think, that's not bad. Because when I looked at them, I thought to myself, that's not bad, and I would like to have those because they look very cool. There are other colorways. This one I had to go through Dick's to find because I was going to get them from Brooks, but Brooks didn't have them. Anyway, so that's kind of what's going on down there, right? And just getting in there a little bit closer, it's a standard mesh upper, right? A lot of running shoes are all kind of the same, to be fair, right? Different sort of prime knits or meshes or fly knits or whatever you want to call it, but it's all very similar at the end. I mean, not everything's exactly the same. Some things will obviously feel better than others, but the approach is fairly similar in a lot of cases. And then past that, it's just going to be like a lot of this whole purple thing, or the nightlife, as they call it, is like the overall thing of it. I don't know, I guess this would be the colony blue down here. But then you get on the middle side, you got the little Brooks logo, the same thing that they have often on there, right? But the thing that I actually kind of like, even though I'm usually against it, because I usually don't like the big branding, but the big branding on the interior, it just works in this case, so I'm a fan of it. And otherwise, there's not a whole lot going on with that. So we'll jump over here to the laces and everything. Laces wise, the one thing that I noticed about these, like if you look in here real close, for one, you got those green tips, which I'm a fan of. But they also have these little ridges on there, which make it seem like, because I've seen other laces similar to that, and I think there's a pair on there's a trail shoe from Adidas, from Asics, the Trabuco Max, the Brain Dead pair. Sometimes when you see like laces that have those little ridges on there, the reason they're like that is to make them not slip out so easily, right? So that way, even if you don't have them tied so much, they'll still stay in place. So I don't know if that's what they're going for here, but that's just what it makes me think of. Otherwise, moving on past that, behind there, same sort of tongue material, an approach that you would see on like a lot of the Novablast line. And you even have a little bit of that branding down the middle, which has been very common on a lot of these things. Moving up to the top here of the tongue, same sort of approach again, right? But the one thing I will say, the part where it kind of cuts in, that part is pretty flimsy, right? Which is fine, and I'm okay with it. But the part under that, though, like this harder plasticky piece, that was kind of pushing all into my ankle, like when I was walking around in them. It feels like it'll break in a little bit or whatever, but it's one of those out of the box things, like your first impressions matter a lot, and this made my first impressions kind of like not super great. But anyways, moving on. Down on the inside, right, it's blacked out, got a little Brooks action going on in there, otherwise just a full black insole and a full black sock liner, all that stuff. Outside of the mesh, obviously, because the mesh is going to be purple on the inside, but not a big deal. So I think that covers everything. Let's go ahead and move on. We'll do the personal thoughts piece, and then we'll move on from there and talk about sizing, comfort, yeah, all that. So, personally, right, these right here, I saw them, I took them out of the box, and I thought to myself, these are looking pretty okay. Like, I wanted these a lot. Hyperion is from Borderlands. Brooks said that this is going to be the pair for me, and I am going to agree with them and just buy them. And so the first impressions would be the visual, and I was like, okay, this is cool, I like it, right? I mean, I will tell you now, putting them on, wearing them and stuff a little bit, yeah, they're even feeling pretty nice there too. We'll get into that a little bit later. But the thing that kind of really pulled me in was reading about the tech earlier. The whole nitrogen thing, it just sounds interesting, right? And they have a lot of colorways of this, as a lot of people do with their running shoes. So if this one isn't for you, there are other ones out there. But all in all, I gave Brooks $140. They gave me this, and as it stands right now, it was $140 well spent. Well, I gave it to Dick's Sporting Goods, but still, money well spent so far. The one thing that matters is, are they going to stand up well when I run in them? Because sure, I can walk around in them, and that's fine, but they're made for running, right? So that's kind of where they need to shine. We'll get that whole thing figured out over time. But first off, before I jumping into that, I will say this, right? Actually, no, I'll do that later. It's because no one cares about this stuff. You just want to see the on feets and the sizing. So let's do that. Sizing wise, I bought these in a 9.5 because my foot size is 9.5 and it just felt right. And you know what? These also just feel right. There's not a whole lot of room in there. Maybe you saw from some of the pictures earlier. It's on the slimmer side of like running sneaker build, right? So when you look at something like the Nimbuses and the Kayanos and that sort of thing, you got a little more room in there, right? These, not so much. It's fine enough for me, right? I put my foot in here and I feel right at home. They're not too long, not too wide. It's a nice, snug sort of fit. The material on the upper feels really nice. And also walking around in these, like as soon as I put them on, I mean, out of the box, they felt so light that I was like, this is just gonna be trash. I feel it. But like walking around in them, I like these a lot. You know, they felt stiffer underfoot than a lot of like those shoes made for comfort, and that's kind of where the nitrogen comes in, like I was talking about earlier, right? So that's in there to give you a nice amount of comfort, but without being squishy, and that seems to be working out quite well. So I've got no complaints there, and I would imagine a lot of people that wear these would probably feel the same way. Supposedly this is going to be like a lightweight bounce back sort of shoe, like gives you a nice streamlined approach and like kind of helps you feel speedy through everything. That's what they're going for here. And I can honestly feel pretty confident in saying that I think that's what I'm going to get out of them. I'm not going to say that for sure because again, I want to wear these first. But just walking around in here, even if they don't work out so great for like the running and I still end up preferring other stuff, it's still going to be like a nice shoe to just wear, right? I'm not a big fan of buying running shoes to walk in, but this could be one that wouldn't be so bad, especially with a low price point and whatnot. But I'll get it all figured out later. But otherwise, the mesh on the upper, super breathable. The feeling under the foot, very nice. The fit, true to size, worked out fine for me. So all in all, like all things considered, these are really just shaping up to be a pretty solid purchase. Even though when I took them out of the box again, I was like, they just felt so light that I was like, I feel like this might be some trash right here. But it seems that I was wrong. Anyways, so past that quick little comparison of some things that I had recently, move those over here, bring these guys up. So at $140, right? I said that's what the base price of these would be, the Hyperion 2. Does anybody else play Borderlands though? Because like I happened to mention that earlier because it just came to mind, but I don't know. It seemed like it was a popular game, but I also like haven't met many people that actually talk about playing it. Anyway, so also 140 is going to be the Novablast series, right? This is the 5, and a lot of people like these, and I get why, right? But as many accolades as they've received from like everybody that I know, a lot of people with like the Novablast, I would rather walk around in these because these have that like kind of weird bouncy feeling. They also feel a little higher. These, I forgot to look up what like the drop is from front to back, but it felt pretty nice. And just, I liked not having that weird bouncy feeling. They kind of reminded me in a lot of ways of these, though these are definitely like pretty high in the back and pretty low in the front. It's 10 millimeter drop on these. This is the Adidas Supernova Rise. But when I put these on and was just walking around in these inside, I was like, yeah, these are phenomenal almost, right? Not to oversell it, but I'm just saying, they felt really good, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things when I get these all worn for a while, like do some miles in them or whatever, I'll have to come back and see how everything feels. But I'll probably be comparing these a lot just because they're at the same price point, right? And they're all 3 different brands, so it just kind of seems like a thing that makes sense. But yeah, just know this. If you're looking at some shoes in like the 140 range, you're probably actually going to get something that's pretty solid. I used to think like you might want to spend more than that, but 140 is looking like a pretty nice spot for pricing rise. I mean, obviously all this stuff goes on sale because they make so many colors, but I'm just saying like the retail price of 140 isn't as bad as I used to think it was as far as quality and whatnot. So that's something to think about. From me to you, have a nice rest of your day or rest of your night, wherever you are. One more video and then I am done, and I'm gonna go watch this Peter Pan Neverland movie, the one that's made by those people that made all like the Winnie the Pooh horror movies. Yeah, it's gonna be terrible. I'm very sure of it. But then again, I was wrong about these, so who knows? Later, people.